We need to talk about We Don't Talk About Bruno. We need... Let's figure it out. So the entire soundtrack from Disney's 2021 animated film Encanto has absolutely exploded, and perhaps none more so than We Don't Talk About Bruno, which has sat atop Spotify's charts for weeks. We Don't Talk About Bruno is the incredible work of singer-songwriter, actor, and director Lin-Manuel Miranda. So I thought today we would take a look at it, break down how it's composed. Let's take a look.
What if you didn't understand what he saw?
Then you better figure it out, because it was coming for you.
We don't talk about Bruno, no, no, no. We don't talk about Bruno.
So immediately we can hear kind of the palette that we're creating. We're in this C minor. Now, this tune has been described as kind of like a Latin pop with basis in Cuban folk music, some salsa. Now, when we talk about Afro-Cuban Latin traditions, one of the really interesting things that I learned when I was in school playing with the Latin Jazz Orchestra, things can get really, really specific. Certain rhythms go with other rhythms, and certain rhythms don't go with other rhythms. And a lot of the things that we might listen to without an in-depth background and understanding of all these different Afro-Cuban and Latin styles, they might sort of sound just like, oh yeah, this is like a Latin feel. But if you go levels deeper, there is so much more to it than that. I still am far from an expert on it, but I can tell you that it is some of the absolute most fun you can have playing music. And immediately in the beginning of We Don't Talk About Bruno, I hear something that is quite familiar, and that's this sort of minor salsa influenced chord progression. Immediately we're met with what I assume is sort of the hook, I guess. We have a flat 6 major chord, A flat major in this case, going right to the 5 chord. That to me seems like maybe the end of the form, setting up the new verse, which is what I think we're gonna hear next.
It was my wedding day. It was our wedding day. We were getting ready and there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
No clouds allowed in the sky.
Bruno walks in with a mischievous grin.
Thunder.
You're telling this story or am I?
Immediately we have this sort of setup that is very reminiscent of a lot of Latin Afro-Cuban music. This music, in many ways, it's meant for dancing, right? So we have a lot of what we might call a vamp, or a very simple, brief set of chords that repeats itself over and over again. And the first part of this chorus is very simply 1, 4, 5, 4, 1. That's the basis of the song. So with that 1, 4, 5, 4, 1 chord progression, we have the bass line playing.
It was my wedding day.
It was our wedding
We
day.
were getting ready and there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
Clouds allowed in the sky.
Bruno walks in with a mischievous grin.
Thunder.
You're telling this story or am I?
So we have that 1, 4, 5, 4 figure 3 times, and then on the 4th time, we go to our flat 6 chord, back to our 5. As a whole, this chord progression is extremely simple. And if you go through a lot of music by, for example, Tito Puente, you'll see that there is so much of it that is based on not even this much harmonic information. So much of it is based on, sometimes it's just 2 chords, sometimes it's even just 1 chord. Even, for example, take something like this, which I'm sure many of you know. That's the whole tune. I mean, yeah, we have the other sections that go... But that's still just the same chord sequence. It's 2 chords. Because in a lot of the Afro-Cuban Latin salsa music, the objective was to create dance music. And it could just be a very solid, steady thing over and over, which in many cases, for the sake of dancing, is better. If you start introducing all these complex rhythms and harmonies, that can sometimes make it more difficult for dancers to do their thing. So bands and composers would write compositions that would work really well for the application of dance. We used to put on these dance nights back in school where the whole Latin band, I mean, it was, 20+ piece big band, and we would do these dance nights and people would come out and dance, and that was one of the big things that we would basically have to do, is we would take these open sections of songs that were probably really basic to begin with, and we would just extend them out to be the same thing over and over and over again. It's not the harmonic content that's the important part, it is the groove. And that is one of the things that Lin-Manuel Miranda has really done well here, and I'm sure one of the major contributing factors to why this song has exploded in the way that it has. repeat. Yep. Okay. This is super cool, and this is obviously, you can see, one of the reasons why I think people were so excited about this song, because what Lin-Manuel Miranda has done was to do this sort of halftime, more pop, hip-hop oriented thing. So when we say something is in halftime, what we're literally talking about is we've taken the tempo and we've simply cut it in half, and that literally comes down to a number. So if you are talking about 100 beats per minute, well, halftime would very simply be 50 beats per minute. But you don't need the numbers to make sense of exactly what that sounds like, because all you have to do is, instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you're only gonna count every other one, because that would be half as many in the same period of time. 1, 2, 1, 2. Original tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every other one, 1, 2, 1, 2. Notice we've left the bass line exactly how it was, and it works great, even with taking away that quarter note and giving it more of that halftime feel. It's a really effective transition because we've established the expectation that we have this steady groove going on that is based on a much more traditional Latin Cuban folk music type of influence. However, then we drop that for a much more modern pop hip-hop influence. And of course, that's going to be the thing where people, they're already feeling the groove of the first section because Latin music just has some of the most insane groove of any music ever. But then you're adding the excitement of the modern edition with the more hip-hop sounding kind of beat. It's a really brilliant combination.
Do you understand?
So in this section, we've sort of introduced a little bit of in-between. It's not quite the traditional Latin rhythms, and it's not that halftime hip-hop sort of influenced feel. Now we're just sort of, this is what maybe where that label of Latin pop comes into play a little more so. It's kind of in between. Again, same... Same exact chord progression, same harmony. We haven't changed a thing. The only thing we've changed thus far is the rhythmic feel. And it's creating a lot of really cool variation in between the specific scenes. So far, every subject, every soloist has had their own sort of feel while remaining in that same exact form, same tempo, even though we had a halftime feel at that one point. Still the same tempo, same chord progression, same harmony. Everything is staying the same, but we're just changing it up from scene to scene, and it gives it that new component of just something new and interesting every time we switch to a new soloist.
Your fate is sealed when your prophecy is read. He told me that the life of my dreams would be promised and someday be mine.
We've actually switched. Instead of being in our minor bass of C minor, we flipped it to the relative major. So this one section, it's sort of implied because the instrumentation does not explicitly play the notes that would tell you exactly that, hey, this is an E flat major chord rather than our C minor chord. But if you listen to, as this section continues, it's implied.
He told me that the life of my dreams would be promised and someday be mine. He told me.
So the second time around, it's a little more concretely stated. We have this E flat. How many times have you heard that chord progression, right? Right? It's definitely going to switch back at some point. Let's see how it does it.
I want not a sound out of you. I can hear him now.
Oh.
Yeah, about that Bruno. I really need to know about Bruno. Give me the truth and the whole truth, Bruno. Your boyfriend's here. Time for the end.
Ooh, that was really nice. What is that? Okay, so we're starting to sneak back into that original C minor chord progression, but we do it with our flat 6-5 change that we were using before on We Don't Talk About Bruno, right? We don't talk about Bruno, whatever it is. And it's twice as fast this time. And then we have this nice chord that just sits there for a moment.
Yeah, about that Bruno. Bruno. I really need to know about Bruno. Give me the truth and the whole truth, Bruno. Isabella, your boyfriend's here. Time for the end.
Okay, check this out. So that chord right there, the whole time so far, we've been hovering over this flat 6, 5, flat 6, 5, and then all of a sudden we hear da 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 da. That's the melody.
Give me the truth and the whole truth, Bruno. Isabella, your boyfriend's here. Time
Check that out. I think we're still there in the bass line, which would make this chord. And then time for dinner, right? So I feel like this is an A flat minor 9 kind of sound. 11, because the melody winds up being the 11, so da, 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 da. That's a beautiful chord, and it's really cool because we just were taking this chord was just major, right? Because we had flat 6, 5, flat 6, 5, and then we go right back to that A flat, only we flip it minor and add all these beautiful color tones to it. Those are not beautiful color tones. That's really nice. And then I don't hear the bass going to that 5, which would be treating this A flat minor almost like a 2-5 in its own right. Right? And you would expect it maybe to resolve like, right? But I don't hear the bass moving to the 5. I don't hear that D flat. But I do hear, which is sort of implied. It's almost doing its own 2-5, even though I didn't explicitly hear the 5 in the bass as the root. But what's really cool is that out of this, we just drop right back into C minor. And that is a really cool resolution back into the original theme.
your boyfriend's here. Time for the
Lin-Manuel Miranda did a really great job at blending these traditional styles with the more modern influences that are going to be very popular amongst a lot of different people from all over the world. Side note, if you have not checked out some of the traditional Afro-Cuban Latin music like Tito Puente, Mario Balza, Chucho Valdez, as well as more modern bands like Arturo O'Farrell's orchestra, it is some of the most fun you can have listening to and especially playing music. So I highly recommend you check out some stuff by all those different artists. And you know, understanding a lot of the harmony and the chord structures that go into making things like this, and especially being able to hear them, and just sort of like knowing what you're listening for. That's a lot of the stuff that we cover on the Cornell Music Academy, and a lot of the course matter is based on understanding the basic theoretical concepts that you can then use to better understand the things that you're hearing. And obviously being able to hear this music in the first time and just immediately understand what's going on with the harmony, that takes time, that takes practice. But if you're just starting out, there's a toolkit that you're gonna need in order to even know what to practice to get to that point. It's a lot of the stuff that we cover in the Intro to Piano course. And everything from like just understanding the notes on the page to understanding the notes on the keyboard, knowing how to use your fingers correctly. It'll give you the tool set to start your musical journey working towards that point. It's packed full of actionable steps and exercises, as well as downloadable resources like PDFs and backing tracks so that you can practice all this stuff on your own, at your own pace, in the comfort of your own home. And for March, we've brought back the 30% off discount code. If you want 30% off, not just the Intro to Piano course, but anything that you want to buy on the Academy, including our Intro to Improv course and our Making Sense of Modes course, just use that code MUSICTHEORY30 and you can get 30% off your purchase. If you're working to improve your improvisation skills, our course on that will provide you with some different ways to think about your improvisation, as well as a bunch of actionable steps and examples of lines that you might actually consider playing. You can steal from it whatever you like, and then you can practice them with our backing tracks, which of course are all downloadable so you can practice wherever and whenever you want. Once again, that's MUSICTHEORY30 to get 30% off your purchase on the Cornell Music Academy. The link is in the description down below. That's the best way you can support the channel, and I'm so appreciative of all of you who've done that. I want to know your opinions on We Don't Talk About Bruno. Let me know in the comments below. What did you think of the tune? Did you think it was a really nice blend of traditional Latin Afro-Cuban styles, as well as the more modern pop and even some hip hop influences that we hear in here. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.